Today's video is not a reaction, and it's not an attack, it's an analysis. Recently, Candace Owens released an episode discussing Project Looking Glass, the Mandela Effect, CERN, and the idea that governments and institutions may be manipulating timelines, consciousness, or reality itself. These are serious claims, not because they are new, but because of how they are framed, why they resonate, and what they ask the audience to accept without verification. My goal here is simple: to slow the conversation down, separate documented history from speculation, and examine how narrative, belief, and distrust interact in moments of social and political uncertainty. You don't need to agree with Candace Owens to find this discussion useful, and you don't need to dismiss her outright either. But careful thinking matters, especially now. Let's begin by clearly outlining what is actually being argued. In the episode, several interconnected ideas appear repeatedly. First, Project Looking Glass is presented as a secret government program capable of viewing or navigating future timelines. Second, there is the claim that around the years 2012 to 2016, something fundamentally changed, that multiple timelines converged, or that humanity entered a new reality. Third, consciousness itself is described not just as perception, but as a force capable of influencing reality, even overpowering technological or governmental control systems. And finally, institutions such as governments, media, scientific organizations, and even particle physics research are framed as part of a broader, coordinated effort to suppress or distort truth. These ideas are not introduced as hypotheses, they are presented as revelations, and that distinction matters. To be clear, some historical elements referenced do exist. The US government funded remote viewing programs during the Cold War. These programs were later declassified, reviewed, and ultimately shut down due to lack of reliable results. That is documented history. What is not documented is the existence of a verified system capable of consistently viewing or manipulating future timelines. There is no publicly available evidence, peer-reviewed research, or independently corroborated data supporting that capability. At this point, claims about Project Looking Glass move from history into testimony, often relying on unnamed insiders or secondhand accounts. That doesn't automatically make them false, but it does mean they cannot be treated as established fact. A critical mistake happens when possibility is quietly replaced with certainty. Another major element of the episode is symbolic interpretation. The Mandela Effect is presented not as a psychological phenomenon, but as proof of timeline alteration. CERN experiments are framed not as physics research, but as metaphysical or spiritual interference. Popular culture, movies like The Matrix, is treated not as fiction but as coded disclosure. Here's the problem: symbols are not evidence, they are interpretations. Humans are pattern recognition machines. When trust in institutions collapses, symbolism fills the gap left by certainty, meaning replaces measurement. And while symbolism can be emotionally powerful, it is not a substitute for verification. One of the most persuasive elements of this narrative is personal testimony, moments of intuition, sudden realizations, a feeling that something shifted. These experiences are real to the person experiencing them, but personal experience becomes dangerous when it is elevated into universal explanation. A feeling of awakening is not proof of external manipulation. Correlation is not causation. And conviction, no matter how sincere, does not convert belief into fact. This is where many modern conspiracy narratives gain power, not through evidence, but through emotional resonance. So why do stories like this spread, especially now? Because trust is collapsing. Political institutions feel unstable. Economic systems feel rigged. Media credibility is fractured. And technology moves faster than understanding. In times like this, people don't just want explanations, they want meaning. A narrative that explains everything, even if unproven, can feel more comforting than uncertainty, especially when it frames the believer as awake, enlightened, or resistant to control. The real danger here isn't curiosity. Curiosity is healthy. The danger is when skepticism disappears, not toward institutions, but toward the narrative itself. When a story becomes immune to questioning, it stops being analysis and becomes ideology. At that point, every contradiction becomes further proof, and every doubt becomes evidence of manipulation. That is not liberation. That is closure disguised as insight. You don't need to accept these claims to understand why they matter, and you don't need to mock them to critique them. Questioning power is essential. Distrusting authority can be rational. But abandoning evidence altogether leaves us vulnerable, not free. The most important skill in uncertain times isn't belief or disbelief. It's discernment. And that's where the real work begins.